Welcome to I Love My Hair 101. My name is Mimi, or Kamisha, whichever one works best for you. Today we're going to be learning about children's hairstyling. I hope you guys have a bunch of questions because I'm here to answer a bunch of questions and I'm excited. First thing we're going to do is an icebreaker. I just want someone to tell me something they're hoping to learn today.
I want to learn how to tame this down. Or to style it like you do in little tiny ringlets. I have not been able to master.
We haven't mastered it yet?
No.
All right, we'll be learning about that today. And then I would like someone to tell me one word that describes how kid styling makes them feel. Happy? Happy? I'm glad you started with that.
I feel creative.
Creative, yes. There's so many options and cool styles that you can do, so it's exciting. Literally, Amina has been getting her hair done since she was 2 months old because I was just like, oh my God, my baby got hair, let's go. So I want to talk about positive language. I hear a lot of people say the word nappy. It's like the least favorite word I have in the world. I hate the word nappy, mainly because it goes back to like enslavement and just like how we negatively described our hair. It just kind of encompasses everything bad. And so there's all these other words that we can use to describe hair. We don't necessarily have to use negative words. If the hair is dry, it's dry. If it's tightly coiled, it's coiled. It's not necessarily nappy. If it's tangled, it's tangled. We can just call it tangled, but we use these words that are like inappropriate, and it kind of puts these ideas in kids' heads that there's something wrong with them because we don't know how to properly describe what we're dealing with when it comes to their hair. And so if you want, you can take pictures of it, whatever. This is a good list of descriptive words that you can teach your kids that help them describe their hair without using all of the negative words that make them feel like something is wrong with them. It's kinky, curly, coarse, big, bushy. We have tall hair. I like to tell people that our hair defies gravity because God likes us to be close to the sun. So that's a better way to describe your hair rather than saying it's huge, it's too much, or it's too big. You can tell them like, well, you know, there's a reason why Jesus wanted your hair to be nice and big. He wanted you a little bit closer. Textured, rough, that's a word. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative word, but it does describe like what you may be dealing with if the hair feels kind of frayed. Body, again, your hair has a lot of body. It's not too poofy. We don't have to use negative words, and it's all about how you say it. And so just being mindful of what we're using to describe things with small children so that they can make sure that they're growing up with a positive idea of the way that they look in general, even including their hair. The first thing about children's hair that I think is really important is getting them on a routine. Most kids can't adjust to getting their hair done regularly because they're not on a routine. But with most things, you want to put a child on a routine. A sleep schedule. You got a sleep schedule. If you want them to go to bed by a certain hour, you have to put them on a sleep schedule. It's the same way with their hair. If they're anticipating on Fridays in the afternoon is when they're getting their hair done, usually they're more cooperative, and then you can make it a thing where they're adjusting to it. Somebody tell me how often you guys are washing your kids' hair. Twice a week?
Once a month.
Once a month, yeah. I generally wash Amina's hair maybe once a month, but bi-weekly is pretty good, especially if you have kids that are playing outside a lot. Lice does like really clean hair, so be mindful of that. If you're washing your kids' hair every day, usually those kids are the ones that get the lice. Not really sure how that works, but it works, and I have never had lice, so we're gonna keep it that way. But yeah, bi-weekly, and then you just wanna make sure you're using something that is safe for kids. So if you know that your kid gets a little squirmy when they're getting their hair washed or they're like fighting you, don't do something that's like for adult hair that could burn their eyes. There's tons of little shampoos and things like that for small children. That's better. And then also there's the option of co-washes, which is like cleansing conditioner. It's a little bit more hydrating. It doesn't have as much stripping in it, so that when you're washing the hair, the kid's hair is not stripping all the natural oils to the point where it's overproducing. And you'll notice they're getting like the big flakes on their scalp, or it feels super duper 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 dry. And so co-washes are good, shampoos are good. You want to use both, but I know kids are kind of difficult. So if you can make a way to bring them together, most times I'll literally like wash Amina's hair with the shampoo and conditioner at the same time, and then let her play in the tub for a bit while it's in there. And then when she's ready to go, that's when we'll dip the head and let it rinse. She doesn't like any of it, But you have to do what you have to do and you make it work for you. Hydration and moisture needs to happen every single day, especially if you have curly kids, because our hair is extremely fragile. Typically people think that curly hair is stronger, and usually what's happening is that we're thinking that it can handle, you know, less maintenance and stuff, but it's a lot more maintenance than you would think. So you want to make sure you're hydrating the hair every single day. The thing about curly hair a lot of times is that the strands are really, really fine. And so if you're leaving them to be dry, they're breaking off fast. So people will say, oh, my kid's hair is not growing, or it's not doing this and that. Even if they say they lay on the back of their head at night, and you'll see like it's a little bit shorter in the back. If you're not hydrating their hair, it's not gonna do much for you because it'll be rubbing off right along with it. Every single day. So make sure that you're hydrating it. This is going to be like a leave-in conditioner. I have one here. It's a spray leave-in. Last class we talked about porosity, and if you notice that your kid's hair is extremely fine but it feels really dry, sometimes with children it's harder for them to have chemical damage at a young age because you're not doing anything to it. So typically if they do have low porosity hair, it's because their strands are the cuticle on their strands is really tight. So that's when you want to use a liquid version of a leave-in conditioner. But if you notice that your child has like more coarse texture where it feels really, really thick in the strands, then that's when you want to use like a cream leave-in. Oil and grease on the scalp, the OG things, it still works. I know there's so many different like videos on TikToks and hacks and things like that where people are like, well, we don't do this anymore, we don't do that anymore. We still grease the scalp, we still oil the hair. Grease is good for the scalp at least, but just be mindful if you know your child's hair is super duper fine, go more for like a liquidy oil than a grease because it may weigh it down and then it gets kind of yucky and we don't really want that. And then the golden rule always is protect your hair nightly with a silk bonnet or a silk pillowcase. Because again, if your hair is rubbing up against the cotton, it will break off. And then the cotton actually absorbs all the moisture that's in your hair. So make sure you're covering your hair at night. Do we have any questions?
At night, bonnet versus pillowcase. If you have a pillowcase, do you need a bonnet always?
No, because kids they're not gonna keep them on for real. Sometimes the bonnet slides off. For me personally, with my adult head, it's easier for me to put a bonnet on and then a headscarf around the edges. And it can be something light. They might fall off. They do have bonnets for braids too. So if you do have like a kid that has some long braids in their hair, I have some at home that actually hold the braids so that it will stay on. But yeah, just make sure you're covering it. You don't always need one if you do have a silk pillowcase, but it's better to do both than neither. And so as long as you got one or the other, you should be okay. Now, I know kids are squirmers and they are busy and they don't sit still. I am an iPad mom. I am proud of it. I have a lot of peace in my life. But the iPad is my bestie when it comes down to sitting her down and getting her hair done. I wanted to put together a list of TV shows and books that kids can watch that actually positively influence their outlook on their hair. Mina's show, her favorite show is Karma's World. She actually even has a full episode about black hair, and it talks about how she went to a sleepover with her friends and she put a bonnet on and they were all like, what the heck is that? And it was a whole thing, and it made her feel some type of way because they didn't understand why she had it on, and then she was able to educate her friends. And this is on Netflix, like it's super, super educational. That Girl Lele, all these books are awesome. And then a lot of these shows, they might have an episode or two, but they're just really good shows that give us representation of what it's like to be black and exist and live a full life like normal people, because for some reason we're not normal to some, and I don't get it, but here we are with representation. I'm appreciative. And so if you are looking for things to occupy your kids' time while they are getting their hair done, these are really great options. Gracie's Corner is really cool. It's like nursery rhymes for little black kids, but they're like super hip hoppy. It's really lit. And so yeah, all of these are really good. Sit your kid down, give them an iPad. Also, the shameless plug, the PBS Kids little tablets are like $80. Make it shake, make it work. Give them something to occupy, because if they're just sitting there, they're literally gonna drive you crazy, and then that's when the blow up happens and you don't want to do their hair anymore. So these are some options for kids' braid styles. Tons of options. The thing to be mindful of is just making sure you're not pulling their hair too tight. making sure that their hair is fully hydrated while you're styling. So keeping a water bottle with you. I have those on the table as well. So these are just some little options that I put together for kids styling. They've got a lot of hair and a little hair, and you can accomplish a lot with a little. So just don't have your baby out here looking wild. And if you do, at least hydrate them so that their fro is nice and luscious, and you know, they can feel something they can feel confident in. And then also twist styles. There's different type of twists. So some kids do have dreadlocks. Where's our little homeboy at? Where'd he go? My man's in the back. He's got some beautiful dreadlocks. Dreadlocks are a form of kind of knotting the hair to create thicker locks. It's really low maintenance. You might have to get your hair touched up maybe once a month. It is a strong commitment. So for small kids, this is something that you would want to consider and like take your time deciding on, but they can be combed out depending on how much patience you have. But dreadlocks are an option. These are coils. I'm gonna show you guys how to do a coil on the back of Delilah's hair. She's got perfect hair for this. It looks really fluffy, but it'll coil up really easily. And what a coil means is just that the hair wounds into itself. So there's a bunch of different hair types. Some people's hair goes into the S formation where it's just kind of like a zigzag. Some people's coil. A lot of times if your hair coils, you'll notice that you get a lot more tangling, and you can get dreadlocks unintentionally. Let's avoid that. The best way to avoid that is detangling and hydrating on a regular basis. She's got some tangling back here. I'm about to show y'all how to go ahead and just detangle that real quick. This is what we call the kitchen. The kitchen be hot, especially on a day like this. Can you guys see over there? All right. So the best thing to do, have your clips. Clips are your best friend. Have a bunch. At the very least, you need at least like 6 clips. You want to make sure that you're spraying the hair down before you detangle. Don't detangle dry hair because you'll literally just rip it out. But another rule, it can be complicated. You don't want to detangle dry, but you also don't want to go straight in with a heavy brush because it'll let you rip it out. And you want to take a comb. So generally, I'll start detangling with a comb. You see how she's got some knotting back there? You start at the end. Wide tooth comb is your bestie. Stop with it, come back up, come down, come back up, come down. She got a lot of hair. We like cut all Delilah's hair off not too long ago. Well, how long ago was that? Couple months. And it just grows back super fast. But she's got some gorgeous hair. And just take your time. With small children, I always say your best bet, like under 1, maybe ages 1 to 3, you want to make sure that you're at least trying to detangle with your fingers before you go in with any tools, because the tools give you more room to pull and tug. And their little scalps are still forming, they're still growing, and their hair is like baby fine, and it will snap clean off. And then people wonder why, oh, their hair isn't growing in this area or that area. If you're pulling it right directly out of the follicle, it's going to take a while to come back. And so you just want to be mindful of how much pulling and tugging you're doing. I think this is a good thing. Rule of thumb, things to remember when you are styling. Pulling too tight. Do not pull their hair super tight. It doesn't need to be that tight. It's okay for a child's hair to be a little bit loose. They're little. It does, like if you want it to be neat, use a stronger product, but don't go into it pulling it. Even if you're going to wound it, make sure that the base of the ponytail that you're wounding, make sure you're holding the base and wounding rather than pulling it and wounding it, because then it'll cause them to have scalp abrasions. It'll pull their hair out. You can see up here the bumps. When children have braids and you see these bumps, that means the braids are too tight and they need to be loosened up, because it's literally pulling the hair out of the follicle. So at that point, you're seeing the bulb. A lot of people later in age, they'll have issues with like their edges around the front, some thinning and some balding, because they spent years getting braids done that were just way, way, way too tight. And that's usually what's happening, is every time you're getting it done, they're pulling the hair out the bulb. And so it's taking a little second. Take your time. There's no rush. I know the little squirmers be doing a lot and it can be exhausting, but Wash day is time, it's quality time just as much as it is maintenance. So make it an event, talk to your kid, ask them how their week was at school, give them a project, a coloring book. There's so many cool coloring books that kids have. Communicate with your child. Make sure you're asking them if they're hurting. Are you hurting? You can be honest. Okay. And then also remembering to apologize to children if you do hurt them, even if your intention isn't to hurt them. I remember one time I was doing Amina's hair and it was hurting and I kept going, oh, it's okay, you'll be fine. And she goes, can you say sorry to me? And I was like, yeah, kid, I'm sorry. And she's like, it's okay, Mom. But sometimes they're doing all that screaming and all they're waiting for is for you to apologize. And just making it clear, I'm not meaning to hurt you, though it does hurt you. I apologize that it does hurt you, but that's not my intention. I'm using a little styling gel. When you are doing coils and things like that to kids' hair, heavier products like pomades and things, it's just gonna weigh it down and it's not gonna give it any bounce so that it can actually wound into itself. So be mindful of that. Usually if you wanna use a pomade, you wanna use it for a style that maybe you're braiding the hair or you mean for it to lay down completely versus giving you some sort of like slick. Go ahead and look down for me, Delilah. Thank you. And I'm just combing the product through. And so the cool thing about coils, I'm gonna show you a couple different ways to do it. You can comb it through and then literally just take your finger and wound it around your finger and it'll curl into itself. And I'm kind of just rubbing it and wounding it at the same time and it'll give you that coil. And now you have a nice thick curl. This is good for if you're wanting them to do like a wash and go style, but you don't want it to be so poofy. It's creating those nice big juicy locks for you. Or you can take the comb. Okay, stop. Thank you. You can take the comb and slide it in there and just kind of wound it down. And then as it comes up, it'll coil on its own. And so you got two different ways to do it, and you get these nice, beautiful locks. You see how her texture is doing this? Her hair can look like this all the way around her head. It just takes time. And so that's something you don't got the energy to do, don't do it. So you can also do styles like this. She is not getting hydrated today. It's been a long day. But put the hair up if you want to still practice the coiling method. I put her hair up in braids on the sides, and so she's got a little mohawk, and then I just took her ponytails and went through and coiled the ponytails, so the whole head didn't need to be coiled, but just the top is coiled. So she got a few different styles. And then a couple other things. So pulling too tight, it can cause bumps from hair pulling out of the follicle. Be mindful of that. It really hurts them. I'm not really tender-headed, but even I'd be like, ugh. And so be mindful of how hard you're pulling the hair. Ripping through the hair, I get a lot of people that'll tell me, oh, you can just go through it. And I'm like, I literally can't. And so be mindful if you're at home and just because you're not tender-headed doesn't mean that you don't need to treat your hair with kindness. It's like skin. I like to think of my hair like skin. Am I going to rip through my skin if I'm like, whatever, putting hydration in it? No, I'm going to take my time and lather. It's the same thing with your hair. Take your time, work through it. When you're detangling, work from the ends to the scalp. And just have some grace with your hair because it will break off and you're going to be mad 20 years later when you're bald, trying to figure out how to get it back because there's not too many options for that. And so it can cause tenderness and breakage and scalp abrasions. This right here is a picture of some braids. You can tell that it was braided too tight because her scalp is literally splitting. It's terrifying, disgusting. Don't do it. You can get infections, and infections turn into more things, and then we're all out here looking like Caillou. We don't want to look like Caillou. So, another thing to be mindful of for small children is plastic rubber bands. I use them at the ends of the hair, but if you look at the table, there's some little cotton ones and they stretch pretty nicely. You don't really need to wound the hair tighter than what it'll give you. That's enough. They make these things a certain way. If you want a bigger hair tie, get a bigger hair tie, but the hair does not need to be that tight. And the plastic ones will rip their hair out. And so if you are gonna use the plastic rubber bands or the rubber bands, just put a little oil on them and it'll help you out so that it's not breaking the hair off as you're winding it around or when it's time to take it out. The last one is leaving it in too long. You can use what you want. I'm not the rule maker of these things. I'm just telling you what works for me and what I've learned with time and expertise. But do not leave your braids in for super long, your styles in for super long. You can literally get hair mold. It's disgusting. I've smelled it. You can get mold. You can get matting. I've met people that were like, oh, you know, somebody told me I could leave my braids in for 6 months. No, you cannot. If you're in the summertime and you're going swimming, you need to be making sure that your hair is fully dry after you wash it. If you have a protective style, especially because when it's inside the braids, it's hard to get that moisture out. They'll literally sit in the braids. And so if you don't have like a hooded dryer or something, take the blow dryer and just make sure that the scalp is really dry and the hair is fully dry before you go on about your day. Because a lot of times, say a kid has got some braids for the summertime and they're going swimming every single day and they're like, oh, well, you know, I don't have time to take it out. And so a couple months won't hurt. They still look okay. It won't hurt. Yeah. And then a couple months go by and your hair stinks really, really bad. There's probably a little bit of mold and might be a couple of critters in there. So just be mindful. Take the hair down. Same thing with the hair ties. If you're using the plasticky hair ties and you've got them wound really tight, don't leave them in for crazy long because the hair is just kind of doing its thing and winding around it more and it'll snap off. The front of your hair as well. Think about the fact that the front of your hair generally is a lot softer than the rest of your hair. Women especially, I didn't know until I cut my hair off that like genetically we have like a thinner hairline. And so think about that when you're getting your styles done. If this is a heavy hairstyle, how long do you want to leave it in? Because with the braids, we're doing a lot of stuff and they may twist your hair all the way off. So a lot of people will deal with breakage because of that. It's really hard to like get that back unless you're willing to do some treatments or you can find a trichologist. We don't actually even have one here, I don't think. A hair doctor, I'll send people to a dermatologist and they can tell you about the scalp and the skin, but a person that's educated to tell you about the actual hair and how to heal the hair, they're hard to come by. And so let's just do the preventative measures now so that you don't have to get to that point later on where you're like, I'm unhappy with my hair, I don't know what's wrong with me, and I don't know what to do about it. So these are all the measures, the things that you want to make sure that you're not doing to prevent dealing with balding and thinning later on. These are some helpful tools. I'm going to style her hair real quick with each of these tools so we can show you guys how to use them. I'm about to just do something real simple for my girl Nia. And I'm just parting her hair with the wide tooth comb that's up there. She's sitting so well. I think I'm gonna do a couple of braids in the front. So I'm using the clips to part her hair out. I'm being really gentle with her hair. So in the very front of her hair, I'm gonna do a couple of coils. Are there any other questions while I'm styling?
Where do I find a baby bonnet?
Yes, you can get the baby bonnets online. Amina has a little pink one. I was gonna put the OG pic up there with her and her little pink bonnet. I was posting stuff. I love making people feel bad. I'm like, if she can do it, so can you. There's no excuse. Going through it with your fingers, you don't always need a comb. I'm gonna take a little styling product. This is a pomade. Pomade's gonna give you a little bit more of a hold. The jam is good for that. I will say though, like jam kind of turned into grease more than something like this. I do prefer this one, but for little kids, don't break the bank trying to style their hair. They'll be fine because they're gonna come home looking like they went to war anyway. So don't overthink it. A little goes a long way. So this is the soft bristle brush. It doesn't feel too hard. I'm gonna give it a touch. Anybody wanna give it a touch? You don't need anything that's too rough. Take it. And for smoothing. Woo. Shout out to the Meganies. Now I'm just braiding. I will do an in-depth class on how to braid. And so with braiding, you start with your 3 pieces and you gradually add some hair to it as you go. And then on the other side, I'm gonna do a flat twist. And then I'll have her kind of just show you guys her hair so you can get a closer look at the different styles of braids that you can do. Braid it all the way to the end. Now, do you guys know how to loop the beads onto the children's hair? No? Okay. So I'll show you guys how to do that so you can kind of see. Braid it all the way to the end. And so, coolest thing, I actually ordered these on Amazon. Super nice kit, you can get them. They actually come with the actual threaders to loop them on. And there's letters, there's shapes, there's all kinds of stuff. Kids have fun with these. Sometimes their schools are really weird about beads. Don't let these schools plunk you into not letting your kid express themselves. So with these, you literally just take the tip of this and you thread them on there. Just like that. You can do multiple. Once you have it on there like this, you take the hair and you stick it in the hole. And then you slide them up. Now, you don't want the braids to be too thick because then they may not fit on there. And this is too big of a hair tie, but we're going to use it anyways because I'm not going to scavenger hunt today. But these are nice and stretchy. You take it and you fold the hair over the bead so that it stays on like that. And then you just wound the hair tie around it. And it'll keep it nice and tight. Now, there are some of these that are a little bit smaller that you could use for this, and it would be a better bet. I do notice that when I put beads in Amina's hair, if I do use the plastic ones, the ends of her hair kind of suffer a bit, but it'll give you something like that. And then you can do it all over the head. Now, this is not a look because this is a really big hair tie, but you get the gist. And then there's also flat twists that you can do for small children's hair. I prefer flat twists on Amina's hair because it's super soft. And so with the braids, sometimes she does get bumps really easily. And so with the flat twisting, it's the same kind of gesture as braiding, but you're just twisting the hair around itself. And I'm going to use gel for this because you want the hair to remain a little juicy. A lot of the styles that you're doing for small children's hair don't require it to be super flat. So pomades and super thick things like super thick substances like that generally will weigh the hair down unless you want it to be something that's smooth. But the bounce is okay. We're all here for a little bit of bounce. And so with the flat twist, I'm going to take the hair and take a little section and split it into 2. And then just twist it around itself. And as you come through, grab another piece, continue to twist, grab a piece, twist, grab a piece, twist. And then when you're twisting the hair, for flat twist, it's a lot easier than like 3-strand braiding. Twist the hair inward as you're twisting it around itself. If you twist from the left to the right like this, twist the hair, keep twisting it into itself, and then twist it and it'll give you more of a bounce. Versus if you just twist it naturally, it'll kind of fall and they won't stay in as well. She's like, get this out of my face. Are there any other questions?
Can you show how to do edges?
Edges? Yes. We about to do that right now. Nia, do you have edges? A little bit. She got a little bit edges. So for the edges, there are little edge brushes. These are great and they're super duper inexpensive. But you have to be mindful of which one you get. I prefer these ones because they have more of like a stronger bristle. Also be mindful of the product you're using. If you're using something like this, like for her hair, because it's so fine, we can get by with a braiding pomade and her edges will pretty much stay down for a while. Me, not so much. And I'll use, it's called She's the Bomb because I'm the bomb. I'm just kidding, it's not even my brand. They're called She's the Bomb, but it's a really, really, really good edge control. With most edge controls, they might turn white on you if you use too much. So just be mindful, you need just a little bit goes a long way. And you'll take the stuff, brush the edges down first. If it's not edges, don't make it edges. I really want this trend to stop. I don't get why we started doing Supreme Strong edges. She is bomb. This is my jam. Got these. You can also buy these like $5. And it goes a long way. You only need a little bit. I got the big jars and the little jars. So I'm going to take a little bit and just get it on there. And you just swoop. You got to go with the motion. It's like, it's a feeling. Don't go too hard. Again, if you got to cut it or if it feels like a bang, put it back with the rest of your hair. I really want the trend to stop. I don't know who started it, but whoo! So I'm just laying the hairs down first. And then sometimes if you want, you can just kind of swoop it on its own like that and get it into it. Or you can make designs. The girls are with it, I don't know. That's a good way to do it. Or you brush them down and then just run the brush across. And it'll give you a little swoop that way. It depends on how much edge they have. If there's not a lot there, you might just want to put it with the rest of the hair. If they have a lot of edges, just use your discretion on how much you want to put out there. You can do the cool stuff, so this is why they have, you got me dead. This is why they have the rat tail on the end. If you want to do some fun stuff with the baby hairs, you can take it. I'm gonna try and do something cool real quick, hold on. The question is, what is the question? What I'm gonna do, Nia? What we doing? Some people like the little swivels where they can create circles and whatnot. Oh, I got a circle. There you go. You can do hearts, you can do circles, all kind of stuff. But in general, just brush the hairs down flat and then swoop them to the side. Brush them flat and then swoop them to the side. And now we have super edges. And the last clippy clip is how you can support this. I plan to do these once a month. I'm sticking to it. And I really enjoy having you guys here with me, and I want to keep them free. So if you guys do feel led to, you can share the classes, you can donate, you can purchase some of our little thingies back there to help, because I plan on having these classes more, and it all comes out of my pockets. Get you an iPad. That is your best friend. That's it. Get an iPad, take your time, have some grace, apologize to your kids when you're torturing them, because they have feelings too. Always have your spray bottle on hand and get yourself a variety of products. If you do want to try some products, give them at least 3 weeks to 4 weeks to work before you decide that it doesn't work, because most of the times we just haven't gotten our hair used to it or we're not using it right. Work the product all the way in before you make that judgment too. If you notice that one side of the hair is doing something good with the product, but the other side isn't, think about what order you did it in. Most times I'll do 4 sections. If you start working the product in over here and you get back to here and you've made your way around and this part doesn't feel like it's receiving the product, it's probably dry. So you want to rehydrate the hair with the water. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for coming.